Hmm. This is difficult because I'm concerned about public perception. I'm concerned about how my voice will be received on this. I shouldn't be. I shouldn't be worried about the polish needed to justify my work as my own. I should be able to speak, and I am able to speak. I should be allowed to think. And I am allowed to think. The only person preventing me from doing either of those things is myself. I shouldn't be concerned that I'll come across as too interested, too analytical. I should never accept that I'm reading too much into something. I shouldn't let that affect my emotions, and I shouldn't let my emotions prevent me from doing what I feel is right, which is to project what I love about this game and this series into the world. There's a lot of fear here, and my experience interacting with the community tells me that there's a lot of fear out there as well. Here are my thoughts on it. So, just to give a little background on my history with Guilty Gear, I started playing the series around 2002, starting with Guilty Gear X2 The Midnight Carnival, which is X2 vanilla. The way my friends and I played the game, we weren't part of the fighting game community in any sense. We played PC games primarily. We hosted LAN parties often, or attended LAN parties. We'd travel for them, much like members of the FGC now would travel to tournaments. We would drive to Lansing and other nearby Michigan cities to compete in games like Quake 3 Arena, Unreal Tournament. And when we weren't doing that, we were playing Bomberman, various co-op console games, and a game called Guilty Gear. We didn't really know anything about fighting games at the time, so we mashed Guilty Gear. We didn't look up anything. We didn't know about Dust Loop. We didn't look up guides. Basically what we did is we held forward or down and back and would attack and mash out specials, and slowly we figured out what a quarter circle was and how a DP was input, or what we thought it was, and just kind of worked from there. When one of us first discovered Roman cancel on accident, we thought it was the most useless thing. Why would you ever want to spend 50 meter on canceling your recovery when you could spend it on something sick like a Tyrant Rave or Ride the Lightning or Sacred Edge? So that's where we were for most of X2. That progressed for quite a while, up into my college years, at which point we were starting to get used to a combo system. We still hadn't really learned anything about the game outside of just playing. And we played this game a lot. And when I say a lot, I mean I played it until my left thumb was bleeding. Actually bleeding. To solve that, I would take super glue and glue my thumb shut. Yes, I know, this is disgusting and unsanitary and not great. But this is leading into a greater point, I promise, so I apologize to anybody I'm grossing out with this. We did that for quite some time. Eventually, Accent Core was released. When I say Accent Core, I mean vanilla Accent Core, not AC+, not AC++, Accent Core. We were very excited about Order Soul, and we had experienced playing as ABBA in a previous version called Guilty Gear 𝗖𝗥𝗃, which we all enjoyed very much. Popular opinion says that 𝗖𝗥𝗃 is one of the lesser Guilty Gears. We loved it. Eventually, some of us started to drop off. We started to lose interest in the game. It's been said in several interviews by 𝗧𝗏𝗍 himself, Guilty Gear is a lot like shogi, where if there is a gap in player skill, that gap will be very evident, especially if a player is consistent. Now, we weren't exactly consistent, but I was consistent enough to push people out of the game. At the time, I didn't really understand how to regulate that. It was Guilty Gear time. It was time to go all out. And my goal was always to get more people into the game. That's always been my goal because I love this series. It's fun. I find it therapeutic even, meditative. I just enjoy it. It was always troubling when someone would decide they were done with the series based on frustration of loss. which is partially what inspired the creation of the Guilty Gear Zen series, because I wanted to describe in a condensed format how to approach the game in a way that makes it so that way if you are losing to a player that's better than you, how to get value out of it, how to enjoy it, and how to continue to enjoy the game and grow with it and grow from loss. To take the negativity that could come from that experience and turn it into something positive, turn it into a learning experience. I didn't start learning how Guilty Gear worked until like Guilty Gear Accent Core Plus. That was my first time really getting into Dustloop, the forum, and it wasn't until Plus R that I started looking into my local fighting game scene. Guilty Gear Xrd sign had been announced, the first teaser trailer had been revealed. And, well, I was excited because it had been roughly 15 years since this game had gotten an engine update. This was a big deal. It was time to compete. I wanted to take what I had learned and I wanted to test it. Even though I didn't really know the technical aspects of the game or what I was getting myself into. I sought out my local scene, I started playing games with them, it was a good time, and I attended my very first tournament, which was Frosty Fausting 7. At Frosty Fausting 7, if I remember correctly, I think I went 4-2. 5-2. I'd need to look up the score exactly, but I did good. I did quite good, and it was probably because I had so much experience with X2. But the reason I bring all of this up is because I never learned how to properly play a fighting game. My background in the series is mostly based on playing the game by feel and intuition, which inspired a lot of my focus in the Guilty Gear Zen series on improvisation. I think this is the ideal way to play the game. There's a lot of systems in Guilty Gear that seem intended to challenge your own situational awareness, your ability to stay calm. There are systems in this game, in Guilty Gear Xrd, that seem to exist solely to make you fuck up for being out of control, for being in a panic. The game challenges a player to not only have spatial and timing awareness, but also self-control. And it's a balance. You can't overextend. You have to push your opponent as hard as you can without pushing too hard, which is a tough balancing act. It's like pushing an engine to the red line without overheating. There's something I love about that. Ever since Sign has come out, I have practiced combos, I have studied the game on a technical level, and I've gone as far as to crack into the game's code a bit to help myself understand how exactly the game functions on a code level. I wanted to do this because of my fascination with the game. I really wanted to understand what was going on with this game that I had learned to love without having any technical knowledge. So now it was time to really dig deep on the technical aspects, which had inspired some of my other videos. Now I compete regularly. I don't think I've missed a Frosty Fausting since Frosty Fausting 7. And this most recent one is no exception. So I finally got a chance to sit down with the Guilty Gear Strive demo and have a hands-on experience with it. And I was surprised by a couple of different aspects of the game, especially since the larger public perception of the game seems to be that of a dumbing down of the series. Now, after having a hands-on experience with it, I am positive that this is not the case. This game is going to be difficult. This game is not what people are expecting. This game is hard. This game is the hardest Guilty Gear I have ever played. This game challenges everything I just mentioned. This challenges spatial awareness, timing awareness, and self-control in ways that no previous Guilty Gear has ever challenged, while simultaneously allowing for the type of play that I was used to when I first started playing the game. If a young me picked up Guilty Gear Strive 20 years ago, I would have felt right at home. And if AZ of today picked up Guilty Gear Strive, this game is going to take some practice. This game is going to require grinding. This game is going to require labbing. This game is going to actively prevent memorization. This is an incredibly exciting prospect to me. As a practitioner of meditation and trying to remain present as often as I can in my work and my day-to-day life, staying present, I feel, is very important. Being concerned about the future causes anxiety. Dwelling on the past causes anxiety. And staying present, especially in a fighting game, is how you stay ahead of your opponent. And you never truly know somebody until you've fought them. So what is it exactly that makes this game more difficult? The timing on connecting hits. Timing on hits is far more strict. The timing is there. It can be done. Combos are in this game. Combos are definitely in this game. There is a lot of combo potential here. Connecting the hits is more difficult than it's ever been. It requires tighter timing. Everything is a lot more strict. On top of that, the hitboxes and hurtboxes in the game are also far less disjointed compared to previous versions, while still keeping the combo potential. You can see quite a bit of the combo potential if you take a look at the new Faust trailer. You can see I think he does 6P, 5P, micro dash, 5P, micro dash, 5K, 5D, and it knocks Soul across the arena into the wall, and then it cuts right when he hits the wall. But we know from previous footage that when that happens, he's going to wall bounce. And when he wall bounces, that's going to set up Faust to do that again, or some other combination. And you get several wall bounces before the stick. This is all before he has meter. This is all before he has risk. All the combo potential is there. It's just very spacing dependent. You have to be aware of how close you are to the corner. There's so many possibilities. Memorization is just going to be out the window. The Gatling system has been simplified and made much more streamlined. But I think the thing that a lot of people are refusing to see is just the amount of meter you get in this game. You get so much meter, especially if you knock someone through a wall, which is also an option. You don't have to do that. You can just let someone fall and do your set play. You can do your Oki. You can set it up free right there. But the alternative is you knock someone through a wall, and you can knock someone through a wall with an overdrive, and you will come out the other side with half your meter back after a short time, which if your opponent doesn't have meter and you just did that, you don't have the limitations of the Gatling system. It's gone. The barrier between light attacks and heavy attacks is gone because you can RC and they can't. So suddenly in neutral, you're afforded use of your light attacks. You don't have to wall stick from them by Gatling into a forward attack. You can RC and go into a crouching H. You can RC and go into a close slash. All of these are available to the person with half meter, effectively closing the gap on these things. All attack startups have been made faster. Attacks come out really fast now. Mix-ups are dangerous. Mix-ups are much more difficult to react to. Once you have meter, you basically make up for all of these systems that are gone, and you just constantly are getting it as long as you're aggressive. There's nothing in this game that would incentivize you to turtle. Air unblockables. If I DP, if I hit Volcanic Viper, and you jump in on me and block it, you get blasted back to the other side of the stage, and your risk is just cranked from blocking that hit. Now, I have a decision I need to make. I've cranked your risk, and I want to cash in on it, because that's damage. That's combo fuel there. That's where the combo is. If I want that, I have to go in. I can't hang back. I will have wasted that opportunity. But in the eyes of 𝗧𝘂𝗱𝗏 and this new design scheme and this defensive system, I have won that exchange. I didn't deal damage, but instead what I did is I created potential to deal even more damage than I could have before. But in order to cash in on that, I have to act upon it, necessitating aggression. This game is harder. This game requires more skill. This game requires more aggression. This game requires more precision. This game requires more awareness. This game requires more of you to succeed. That's definitely not to downplay the previous titles. I absolutely love all the previous titles in this series, but looking at this and looking at public perception, you have to see these systems for what they are. And the only way to see that is by connecting the parts all together into the sum of its parts. There's these changes that have been presented in the EVO Japan 2020 build. The new air dash changes completely change how neutral is going to work. All air dash startup has been front loaded, character dependent. You can attack from any point in your air dash. When you attack out of your air dash, it cuts the air dash short, causing gravity to kick in. You can do this late. You can do this early. You can RC. You can shift your character's weight in one direction and then air dash forward in the other direction. You can move around in the air in ways you've never been able to move before. Neutral is completely different now. There are so many potential mind games surrounding this, but ultimately, here's what's happening. There is nothing that will convince most quote-unquote Guilty Gear fans that these changes are good. There's nothing that I can do or say that will change people's minds. The idea that a new player can beat an experienced player, given the higher damage output, the Mahjong effect, will reject a massive subset of players. I think this is by design, and that the players that feel rejected by these changes and will ultimately refuse to see the potential in them. All the knee-jerk reactions, there's no saving it. And that's fine. That's fine. I'm excited for the game, and I know plenty of people who are excited for this game. This game will have a player base. This game will have a following. It's going to be a good time. There will be always, when a new game is released in this series, doom and gloom surrounding the new release. This one especially. And I think this might be a deliberate step by 𝗧𝘂𝗍𝗍. I think strive is meant to challenge us. In a philosophical sense, I think this game is meant to challenge us. Now, anybody who's playing fighting games, oh, it's video games, it's nothing, don't take your video games too seriously. Like this shit's a martial art. This is a martial art to me. This is a martial art to a lot of people. I take fighting games seriously, and I take this fighting game very seriously. I have a lot of fun with this game. That's mostly what I have with Guilty Gear, is fun and enjoyment. But despite that, I have learned so much from this series about myself that seeing these changes and seeing how the fandom has reacted to it tells me that this is all very deliberate. And ArcSys can afford to do this. This is really the biggest piece of evidence that what I'm saying is on the right track here. They just signed with Cygames, like Grand Blue Fantasy, Dragon Ball, BlazBlue, all of these. ArcSys is set. They're good. They got money. Guilty Gear doesn't need to be advertised in a massive way. It doesn't, and it never has been. This is the most I've ever seen Guilty Gear advertised in any way. And all of the advertisements, all of the videos have been played during community events. Community is the focus here. What I'm realizing is that some people they really can't handle that, and it will forever have naysayers surrounding it. When you feel threatened by something, when your ego is in a position where you're constantly making upward comparisons to the world around you, you will downplay the world. You will downplay external influences. You will downplay other aspects of your surroundings in order to superficially raise your ego up. It's a constant in human behavior. So let's take a look at the Mahjong effect for just a second. Let's say I play against a new player in Guilty Gear Xrd. Now, I'm experienced enough in Guilty Gear Xrd that if I'm teaching someone and they're brand new to it and we play a 1st to 10, I'm very likely to beat them 10-0. Now, with the way damage works in Strive, and with the potential for a new player to be able to pull off something impressive in Strive, given the reduced skill floor, now there's still a higher skill ceiling, but given the reduced skill floor, that 1st to 10 could potentially end up, instead of 10-0, 10-1, or 10-2. Now, I'm in a position, as the more experienced player introducing the new player to the series, I'm in a position where I need to make an ego check. I can blame the game. I could easily blame the game. I could say, well, that's just how this game is. It just lets new players win. I could downplay the new player's victory over me. I could say, your victory does not count for much because of the nature of this game. Now, personally, I don't believe that that's true. That player won. They won the fight because of the lack of RNG. This was not a random victory. I failed neutral enough for them to win. They won neutral enough for them to win. And in this game, you don't need to win neutral as much because of the high damage output. So the chances of this happening are much higher. And yet I am tested. I am faced with a decision of, do I make this player's victory less than a victory for my own ego's sake? Or do I congratulate them, say good games, and have fun instead? I have that choice. We all have that choice. We all have the choice to play Guilty Gear Xrd. We all have the choice to play Guilty Gear Plus R. And we all have the choice to play Guilty Gear Strive. This game clearly intended to bring in new blood into the series. That means more players. That means new players. And this game hasn't been advertised on a scale of other ArcSys games. This has not been advertised in the way that DBFZ was. This is not mass marketed. This is marketed only to the Guilty Gear community. So all of the negativity surrounding this game is entirely internal. Also a choice. The more we downplay this game, the more our community downplays this game, the more our community talks shit, the more Guilty Gear as a community will stagnate. This is very concerning to me. This is very concerning to me because I love this series. And I love this community. I don't hold it against anybody to complain. Like, I get it. I understand. I think it's a lack of foresight. I think it's a lack of vision into what's actually happening with this game, though, because the skill ceiling in this game is way higher than any previous Guilty Gear. If you can get past the fact that you're not going to be allowed to memorize things anymore. That's the challenging part. That's the crux of so many discussions and arguments. Oh, why didn't they do this? When clearly they should have, because that's the set play. Set play is gone. We have to improvise, and if you don't know how to improvise, you're going to end up with 4-hit combos. You're going to end up with the minimum. Anybody with the lack of vision in that regard is going to be stuck. I think that's all intentional. I think this game, and the way it's being presented, and just the way 𝗪𝗧𝗋𝗋 smiles in his photos, he knows that. And I think as this game ages, I think as we get our hands on it and actually start playing it, people are going to see just how much potential was always there. And once someone is stuck in this repeated cycle of talk shit about Strive, they're not going to be able to get out of it, because suddenly their pride's on the line. They would need to back down on all their memes. Who's going to do that? Oh, hey, you know that game I was bitching about for the past couple months? Turns out I love it. Turns out it has everything I wanted. It just took a while for us to find it. Oops, we had a knee-jerk reaction. No one's going to do that. So few people are going to do that. It's going to require introspection, and God forbid that's going to be the last thing anybody's going to want to do, because introspection hurts. Introspection is difficult. We all want to imagine that we are inherently good people. We're not. Nobody is. We're all capable of shitty behaviors. And to step back and be able to look at ourselves and reinvent ourselves is difficult. It's not something that people are readily interested in doing. Ultimately, my impressions, the graphics, the presentation, the gameplay, I had a blast. I had a ton of fun playing this. I played with a lot of different people, and I approached it the same way I approached every Guilty Gear prior. I mashed it out, I had some fun, and I even pulled off a couple of improvised combos that elicited a response from spectators. A mid-screen 9-hit combo improvised, and I couldn't repeat it if I tried, but just using my intuition and going in and spending a little bit of meter, I was able to create some interesting situations. And these changes that they've presented in the latest build have been incredibly exciting to see. I've never been more excited for this game, and every time they come out with new changes, I get more excited for it. Whenever I see negativity surrounding this game, it makes me a little bit sad, especially when it's coming from a seasoned Guilty Gear player. Because at that point, what's the point? There's an argument that lowering the skill requirement to get into a game has never helped the game before, but I've had several people approach me personally saying, hey, I've never played fighting games before, but this Guilty Gear Strive sounds interesting. Part of me wonders if the rhetoric surrounding Guilty Gear Strive, especially the negativity, is causing some of these people that were scared of elitism, scared of being subjected to elitism, have become more attracted to this game as a result of all of these complaints. This game is already attracting new players. This game has already attracted new blood, and it's not even out yet. But it makes me sad, because without this adaptation and with all of this negativity surrounding it, it's like the opposite of advertising. It's the opposite of inviting friends into the fold. It's the opposite of creating an opportunity for people to enjoy this series that we've all grown to love. There's a massive sense of entitlement at the root of a lot of these complaints. There's definitely something to be said about having an opinion and liking what you like, and this game isn't for everyone. I'm not saying you have to play Strive to be a Guilty Gear fan. Our words have power. People listen to what I have to say. Some people listen to what I have to say. More people listen to what others have to say when they're very skilled. There's probably a lot of people who aren't going to play this game simply because they don't want to be judged for playing it. And we all like to think that that doesn't affect our decision making. It does. It definitely affects our decision making. There's fear in doing something that we perceive as inappropriate in the public eye. And when the majority of people are talking negativity about a game that is, from my experience so far, quite fun and incredibly skill intensive, it's damaging the community. It's damaging the future of the series. We can do better. I think we can all do better. I think we can all speak better. I think we can have less negativity in the Guilty Gear community. I don't think it's necessary. I think giving negative feedback is totally valid and permissible, given that the negative feedback is coupled with an alternative solution, should there be one. And the alternative solution isn't, don't change the game. To get caught in nostalgia, to be obsessed with quote-unquote the golden years, is to imply that everything that follows is the decline. And if that's the case, you're going down with it. Anybody who doesn't see it that way is contented and enjoying themselves and meeting new people and growing a community and creating connections. The previous titles aren't going anywhere. Destroying the reputation of this game for fun and memes, it's just killing it. And for what? To send a message to 𝗧𝘂𝗍𝗍 to not do what he wants with his series? To say that he doesn't understand the spirit of his own game? There's a lot of audacity behind that. There's a lot of ego behind that. This game is good. This game is very good. And every time I see a new change, it gets more and more exciting. There's so many exciting possibilities here. It's hard not to be just absolutely pumped to try this game. And if a good chunk of the community is going to filter themselves out before they even try it, it's a shame. It really is a shame. I feel like they're going to miss out on something great simply because they're scared of being beaten the 2 games out of 10 that they wouldn't have been beaten in Guilty Gear Xrd. And for what? For ego? Why are we playing these games? Is it to feel superior to each other? Because if it is, I say good riddance. I have no qualms saying good riddance to anybody who's playing this game simply to feel superior to other people. I started playing this game to have fun with my friends, and I've met so many amazing people through this game. It's been life-changing. I owe a lot to this series, and I've barely scratched the surface on what exactly this game means to me, because it means a lot more than what I'm even letting on. But to hear quote-unquote fans of the series talk shit about this entry and 𝗧𝘂𝗍𝗍 in the same sentence, it's a bit heartbreaking. So, my hands-on impressions, this game's hard. This game is fun, and it looks incredible, and it feels incredible, it sounds incredible, and I think we should all look forward to it. I genuinely do, and the game still has everything everybody wanted. It's just you don't get it for free anymore. You have to work for it. You have to read your opponent better. You have to play against your opponent more. You can't follow your flowchart as much. You can't be as robotic. You can't think in a robotic, memorized, rote, programmatic sort of way. You have to flow with this game. You have to flow with your opponent. You have to read your opponent from moment to moment. With these resets to neutral, you have to play your opponent more. The conversation, if fighting games are a conversation, which I've heard them described as such many, many times, the conversation in Guilty Gear Strive is going to let the other player speak a bit more. You're not going to be able to suffocate them out of a fight. You're going to have to hear what they have to say sometimes, and sometimes they're going to win because of that. I mean no offense to anybody. And have whatever opinions you want about me, have whatever opinions you want about the game. All of it is valid. I'm not invalidating anybody. All I'm saying is I think we can do better. And I think this game is great. It's a lot of fun. I have yet to find something really wrong with it at all. But that's mostly because I'm not looking for anything wrong with it. I don't have a reason to. And I haven't run into anything yet or seen anything that's off-putting in any real way. It's a different game. This is a different game. But I assure you, the skill ceiling is higher than it's ever been. It's going to be amazing. And I'm looking forward to playing this with other people who also enjoy games. Thank you so much for your time. Peace.